Hey, what's up guys, it's Wishlyst. If you haven't heard about my new album, In the Stars, it's my new lo-fi album under my project Wish on the Beat. It's a 12-track album inspired by the zodiac signs. I already made a video all about that album and some of the track videos are already out too, but in this video I wanted to talk about all the instruments that I played on the album and which tracks you can hear which instruments. So live instruments have been a huge part of my music, particularly on Wish on the Beat. I'm always using live instruments, so for this album, of course, I wanted to bust out everything I had and everything I can play, especially because I was trying to channel all the different zodiac signs. I wanted as many different possible soundscapes, and instruments were really the best way to do that. Definitely check out the album if you haven't yet, but if you have, this video is going to be even more interesting for you, or maybe if you haven't listened to it yet, this will give you an idea of which tracks you want to check out first. So let's get right into the instruments. So the first one I want to talk about is my nylon string acoustic guitar. This is kind of like my go-to instrument for everything. Guitar was one of the first instruments I learned when I was about 6 or 7, and my dad's a guitarist, so he actually wanted me to have a nylon string acoustic when I started out to make it a little bit easier on my fingers. And I think because of that, I just really got a preference for nylon string instruments. Even though they're really meant to be played more classically or Spanish style finger plucking, I play my nylon string acoustic like a regular acoustic. I use a soft pick or I do my just finger plucking, but I just love the sound of a nylon string instrument. This Ibanez was my dad's at some point, but somehow it came into my hands and it's mine now. But I use this instrument on everything, Wishlyst songs and covers, as well as Wish on the Beat. If you hear acoustic guitar, you're most likely hearing this nylon string. So the tracks that you can hear this in, I knew this was going to be hard because there's 12 tracks, so I just have the album pulled up to help me remind myself which instruments are in everything. So you can hear this acoustic guitar in the Taurus track as the main instrument, as well as the Virgo track as the main instrument. But you can also hear it in sort of additional ways. On the Sagittarius track, you'll hear it as the rhythm plucking. On the Scorpio track, you'll hear it as some counter melodies. But really, the tracks that feature it the most are Taurus and Virgo, which are both earth signs, so I thought having the earthy, warm nylon string acoustic guitar was a good fit for those tracks. You can also hear it doing some strumming in the sort of chorus section of the Capricorn track, though Capricorn uses mostly cello, which we're going to get into later in the video. Next up is my Fender Stratocaster. I love this electric guitar. I know the exposure's not working out so great with my all black and the white guitar, but you get the idea. So this guitar is actually fairly new to me. I've only had it for a few years, but when I was a teenager, I had a Strat very similar to this one, and that was like my baby. When I went off to college to study classical music and cello, I thought I was never gonna play my electric guitar again, so I sold it for very cheap, luckily to someone who loved it and was gonna play it a ton. But so I no longer have the electric guitar of my preteen years, so I really wanted to replace it, and a couple years ago I got this. It's a Mexican-made Fender Stratocaster, no fancy upgrades or anything like that, but it definitely gets the job done, and I really played like a ton of rock music as a kid, so that's really what I wanted this instrument to do. So like distorted rock sounding guitar is really just so much fun for me, and when I got this guitar I just instantly felt back to those electric guitar days when I was younger. So it's been so fun to have this instrument, and In the Stars is the first album where I really was able to dive into that rock sound a little bit more on this Strat. So you can hear this guitar on the Aries track. The first track of the album is really where I went in hard to really experiment with how like rock I can go after not doing it for so long. So Aries, you will hear it. And let's look at my phone and remind myself of the other ones. Gemini also uses this guitar in a less distorted way, sort of more mellow. And in lo-fi, you know, electric guitar is usually used in a more sort of jazzy, mellow way, but that's not really my guitar training. I'm not really that kind of player, so that's why I did sort of more of like rock influenced. But Gemini is a more mellow use of this guitar. And then you'll also hear this guitar as the lead instrument on Leo. Leo does use some other instruments as well, but all of the leads and the melodies are on this guitar. As well as Sagittarius, the leads and the melodies are on the electric guitar. And I thought, especially for the fire signs, electric guitar was a good pick because it's the most fiery of all the instruments that I play and that are available to me. So that's where you can hear the Stratocaster. Next up, we have my little ukulele. I got this ukulele just for Wish on the Beat. After I had done a lot of acoustic tracks, I just wanted to expand the sound a little bit, so I learned ukulele. I'm not amazing at it, but I've learned enough to play. If you play guitar, it's a pretty simple instrument to learn. So it was fun to have the ukulele just to kind of change up the sound. So you can hear the ukulele in the Cancer track. Cancer's a very warm, comforting, nurturing sign, and I thought the ukulele had the perfect soft sound for that track. Next up is my modern cello, or basically that just means a regular cello like you would see in an orchestra, or if you went to a concert, you would see a cello like this, which is just your typical standard cello. We just call it a modern cello because you'll see in the next instrument that I have an older style cello that I play as well. But this modern cello is the great basic strings that you would use for any recording, anything like that. So I use this instrument on a number of tracks. The main track that features the modern cello is Aquarius, which uses the cello playing multiple different parts. But the Libra track as well uses the cello, so those are two air signs, both using the modern cello. And then you can hear the cello just as kind of like a little additional bass line support in the Virgo track as well. But Virgo is really more acoustic guitar based, so it's Libra and Aquarius that use the modern cello as really the main instrument of the track. And last, we have my Baroque cello. So not Baroque like broken, Baroque like the Baroque period, which was the earliest part of classical music. That's what I specialized in when I was a full-time classical cellist. So I have this cello that's made more in the construction of the earlier time. So we're talking like the 1600s, early 1700s. The cellos were a little different. It was hundreds of years ago. They had different materials available to them. So if you're playing a cello that's modeled after those older cellos, it's gonna have a bit of a different sound. So it's a lot more mellow, darker, has an earthier sound because it used more natural and organic materials than the modern cello, which uses steel strings like most instruments use these days. So I did use this cello just to have still that string effect, but a bit of a different sound. And you can hear this cello on the Pisces track, which is my personal favorite track on the album. It gives a really kind of mellow, dark sound that I wanted for Pisces. But you can also hear the Baroque cello playing the chordal parts of the track in Taurus as well as Leo. I kind of use the cello more as like a chordal instrument than a melodic instrument in those ones. You can also hear the Baroque cello on Capricorn. Capricorn is a sign that's all about tradition and the old style, so I thought the Baroque cello was perfect for Capricorn, and that's a track that really uses classically influenced writing as well. So that you can also hear this cello, and I'll be curious if you're not someone who listens to a lot of string playing, if you're able to hear the difference in sound between the two cellos, or if they kind of just both sound like cellos to you. But I really enjoyed having the option of using two different kinds of cellos just to make the cello sound a little more varied. Since I don't play violin or I don't play another string instrument like that, at least I have two different cellos to get two different kinds of cello sounds. So those are all the live instruments that you will hear on the In the Stars album. I also have a small MIDI keyboard that I use to plug in MIDI bass lines, but other than that, almost everything is a live recorded instrument that I recorded right here in my home studio and put on the album. So definitely go check out In the Stars. Some of the videos are here on YouTube, but definitely go stream the whole thing on Spotify or wherever you get music. It's In the Stars by Wish on the Beat. I'd love to hear what you guys thought was the best track, which instruments you like to hear the most. The styles really range because of the range of the instruments, so I'll be curious to hear what you guys like the best. Thanks so much for watching, and I'll see you guys next time.